When you're standing in front of a screen that's half the size of a living room TV, it's easy to feel a little hesitant. Is the price really justified? Will it actually improve my games and work, or will it just sit there as a flashy billboard? I'm going to walk through the everyday experience of using the Samsung 49-inch Odyssey OLED G9, so you can decide if it's a genuine upgrade or a pricey distraction. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest thing that trips people up with any ultra-wide panel is the sheer physical footprint. This monitor is 49 inches measured diagonally, but because it's a curved QD-OLED it actually spans the width of two 27-inch 1440p screens side by side. In my home office it took a dedicated 34-inch desk and a little bit of rearranging, but once it was in place the extra real estate was instantly useful. I could keep a spreadsheet on the left, a Discord chat in the middle, and a game window on the right without ever having to Alt-Tab. For anyone who spends a lot of time juggling multiple application streamers, video editors, stock traders, that kind of seamless multitasking feels like a productivity boost you can actually feel. Now, the OLED part is where the Odyssey really separates itself from a regular VA panel. The QD-OLED layer gives you deeper blacks and more vivid colors, which matters when you're trying to spot an enemy's silhouette in a dark map or when you're grading footage for a YouTube video. The pure black levels aren't just marketing fluff. On a dimly lit room you can actually see the difference between a true black and a dark gray that other monitors struggle with. That contrast also helps reduce eye strain during long sessions, because the eye isn't constantly hunting for detail in murky shadows. The performance numbers sound insane on paper: 144 Hz refresh, 0.03 milliseconds response, G-Sync compatible, FreeSync Premium Pro, but what does that translate to in practice? In fast-paced shooters like Valorant or Apex Legends, the monitor tracks motion so cleanly that you rarely see ghosting or tearing, even when you push the graphics card to its limits. I paired it with an RTX 4090, and the frame rates stayed comfortably above 120 frames per second at native dual QHD resolution. If you have a mid-range GPU, you'll have to make some compromises, perhaps lowering settings or dropping to 120 Hz, but you still get a smoother experience than a typical 60 Hz TV. So the strength here is clear. If you already own or plan to buy a high-end graphics card, the Odyssey can actually use that power. Thermal modulation is another feature that's easy to overlook until you run the monitor for several hours. OLED panels can get hot, and Samsung's system actively redistributes heat across the panel to keep temperature spikes in check. In my testing, the panel stayed cool enough that there was no noticeable shift in color accuracy after a marathon 6-hour gaming session. That's a practical advantage for anyone who forgets to take breaks. The screen won't start looking washed out or develop hot spots midway through a stream. However, there are trade-offs you need to consider before hitting buy. The first is price. At its current retail level, this monitor sits in the high three-figure range, which is a lot for a display that, despite its size, is still fundamentally a TV-class panel. If you're a casual gamer who mostly plays on a console or a laptop, that cost is hard to justify. Secondly, OLED still carries a small risk of burn-in if you leave static UI elements on screen for too long. Samsung does include a screensaver and logo detection that can dim static content, but the responsibility falls on you to enable those features and avoid leaving a HUD or toolbar pinned for hours. Another practical concern is the curvature. At 1000 the curve matches the natural field of view of the human eye, which is great for immersion in racing sims or flight simulators. But when you switch to productivity tasks like reading long documents or coding, the curve can feel a bit odd. The edges appear farther away, and you might have to tilt your head slightly to read comfortably. It's not a deal-breaker, but it's something that can affect daily comfort if you're not used to it. So, who should buy the Samsung Odyssey OLED G9? If you're a competitive gamer with a top-tier GPU, a content creator who needs accurate color and extra screen real estate, or a power user who thrives on having multiple windows open without juggling monitors, this is a compelling package. The combination of true blacks, high refresh, and the sheer width makes it a unique tool that can genuinely improve both play and work. On the other hand, if your primary use is web browsing, occasional office work, or you're on a tighter budget, a more conventional 27-inch 1440p monitor will give you similar image quality for a fraction of the cost and without the potential burn-in concerns. In the end, the value of the Odyssey OLED G9 comes not from its headline specs alone, but from how